Now, let me introduce Professor Francesco Vigliarolo, Director and UNESCO Chair Professor, National University of La Plata, Argentina, formally to our audience. Francisco Vigliarolo is a full-time professor of regional economics at Catholic University of La Plata, social economist, Ph.D. in social sciences, specialization in economic sociology, postdoctorate in economics, and master's in sustainable development. He is also an associate investigator of the CESOT, Centro de Study of Sociology of Work, of the University of Buenos Aires. At the University Nacional de La Plata, he is chairholder of UNESCO Chair in Economic Systems and Human Rights. He founded with almost 20 universities all over the world. From 2008 to 2015, he worked at the University of San Martin, where he promoted and designed the first master course financed completely with European funds in Argentina. In democracy and DDDHH, before moving from Italy to Argentina in order to study social responses to the financial crisis of 2021, he worked at the University of Ferrara, where he was professor of social economics and methodology and technique of social investigation and promoter and coordinator of some masters, including social economics and non-profit organization and social economics and international cooperation. Further, if I will speak about him, he has also been the director of CIPSI, Italy, Federation of 45 NGOs present in more than 60 countries around the world. With his investigation, he is interested in local development processes, such as construction of territorial identities that imply the affirmation of rights, ontological reason, through the strength of associative and democratic forms of production. In this direction, he worked to what is called an economic phenomenology, which aims to observe the economy starting from the relationship between subject, materiality, which presupposes functions, ideas, concepts, and the affirmation of the relational identity of a democratic society, which defines an ontological reason as opposed to the utilitarian one. He has published various books and scientific articles from which he explains concepts such as social ethical capital, economic socialization, and democracy, demand for the rights of the people, meso-economics approach, and the principle of economic phenomenology. As his latest book, we mentioned the economy is a social phenomenon, principle of economic phenomenology in 2019, published with Eudeba, Wolves and Lambs, Capitalist Societies and Ways Out in 2017, published with Jaca Book. IIMT.
Everyone, do you hear me?
Yes, sir, you are audible. Thank you, sir. You can continue.
Thank you to everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your initiative. It's really interesting that each month we can do this meeting, and today we can talk about an important topic, in my opinion, that is the balance, the social environmental balance in terms of right. Why this title? First of all, I would like to make a brief presentation, and after deep the topic, and after deep the topic. This presentation aims to illustrate the process of construction of a social balance in terms of right of a community. We have always to place the social balance in each territory, in each community, in its social dimension. By social balance in terms of social environment rights, we can understand the representation of reality of an organization, company, etc., in its territorial dimension as a result of the relations established between territorial actors through cultural reference as a response to need, considered essential of the human and environmental being. So a word that in economy is very small used, being is not having, no? Environment being what we can call the ontological reason of society. I think that you can, I can, in this direction, we can define in this case, it is also defined based on the capacity of the workforce to create those appropriate response to the socio-economic life of a context, and for this reason, it analyzes the added value and the impact that it has on what we can call functional goods and service to the historical trajectory of a country, of a community. We can also deal with a historical trajectory of a territory, of a country, of a community. For this reason, it is states that it's a process. First of all, we can understand that we are talking about a process that also ends up certifying an ethical profile of the organization that legitimates its role, communicate its reliability, ability to invest and create work, demonstrate attention and sensitivity to the context in a sustainable way. In other words, it is a process that generates reflection and communication that contain information about the company that would be left out of the classic economic balance. If you have questions, please, you can interrupt me and we can interact. For this reason, in order to understand the social balance in terms of right, we have to understand we have to introduce some theoretical tips, in my opinion. Because we have to understand that the rights of men and women who live in a society as phenomenological aspects of the individual and social being, if on the one hand they are something that are born with them as a potential structure, as human being, they also depend on the conditions that are installed in the same society and above all in the economy, so that they can have their full realization, in order to have their full realization. Without routes, for example, and means of transportation, our right to move is limited. Without a home, our right to live safely and privately with our family would not exist. Without manufacturing, production, many rights such as sitting, sleeping in a bed, drinking, etc., may be different, limited, and so on. They would be limited without being able to go to school, our right to education, and so for different aspects that we can add, and they are part of what we can call the ontological reason of social life that emerge through the relationship between what we define noesis and noema in Latin, which is always a concept, an idea, a function. It means that if I use a car, for example, it's not only use an economic instrument, but I realize a function that can be described by the means of the social instrument, and not only by monetary and economic ones. For this reason, economic relations are social relations that cannot be reduced only to monetary or material cost benefits, but rather high benefits that hide a potential ontological dimension that is interpreted In this direction, it's important to understand that a social balance have to interpret and direct from the human. It's an instrument that through the one we can interpret the reality and our action with the reality and how we can, as company, as organization, and so on, we can carry out this ontological reality. So I mentioned that is interpreted and direct from the human and social identity in continuous construction. In this way, the demand and supply of good and service must also be read as part, above all, of the construction of the social identity of people. It involves the definition of ideas and the vision of the world that entails the ontological condition of people within their community, what we call the demand for right. This demand for right is permanently built through dialogue between all the actors in a society, from the places of formation of human identity, family, group, movements, etc., and therefore the action of a company. A company cooperative can be fully read only through the integration process that the definition of this demand entails, and therefore through the rights that its economic action allows it to carry out in its community, in terms of purposes and process. For this reason, describe the action of a company, a cooperative, etc., organization, social organization, also academic organization, of a cooperative means describe, first of all, the process that leads to define the potential ontological reason of community, not only the company, of all the community, that the economy must carry forward, and therefore the rights that are built permanently through the goods and services that it generates. So we can define that social environment and social balance is an essential instrument to observe and render and account which rights are exercised consistently and which socio-economic and environment rights conflict with each other. For example, if we have, for example, the right to travel by car can conflict with the right to healthy environmental if cars are produced by contaminating with the negative externalities to the environment, and the same goes for all production activities. We have to create a consistently and current situation activity that have right that not conflict not conflict between them, among them. In other terms, it's also an instrument in order to certify in the most complete way possible the process that we can call economic socialization. Consider the process to define a nucleus of common social and environment values that a company can carry out in its vision of life, in its vision and mission, that is inspired in order to allow all people living together in the same planet. Tell me if it's okay. So we can say, what is the social and environment balance in terms of right? Starting from these theoretical tips, in brief theoretical tips, if you want, we can deep them. It can be defined as the representation of the reality of an organization, company, etc., in its territorial dimension, as a result of the relationships that are established between territorial subjects through cultural reference. It's important to underline the cultural reference because it depends on the relation from the subject and the materiality. It's something that it is constructed in the experience, in the practices it's a process, not something. It's a process that people do, and not something that it's only described data. A cultural reference with which it is proposed to modify the local context as response to needs and achieve a situation of social and economic and environmental well-being. For this reason, we can define it also in terms of rights. In this case, it's also defined based on the capacity of the work. Excuse me, I just said this. The main parts that make up a social balance can be considered some topics. First of all, we can what we define the vision of life, no? Social balance in terms of right has always a vision, a mission, stakeholders, or what the interest stakeholder or subject that has an interest with a company, strategy, activities, indicator, and the value, added value that the company create, and at last, the contribution to social environment demand for right. The mission can be defined as the long-term objective that the company organization sets for itself and characterizes its action in the territory. The vision is the set of values and cultural reference, the set of values and cultural reference that the organization company and as and through which it leads action in economic field. It means that the economic field it's always referred to a cultural dimension that organizes the action, and it defines the horizon at long term. Without this important dimension of the vision, we can have a social balance in terms of right, because we need to incorporate to put in the economic system what is value. In Latin, value is what is good for us, good for a community, good for our happiness, we can say. And so, in order to put inside the economic field the vision, first of all, we can start from important question: what kind of society is wanted in the near future for our territory? What is important for us? What are the values, the basis in which, the foundation in which we build our activities? Because economy is always a social phenomenon. The stakeholder are all those internal and external actors who have a relationship of interest with the company, organization. It can be weak, the relation can be weak, strong, good, bad, and so on. After we go inside in these items. Strategy or activities are all the set of what we do as an organization to achieve the general mission. It's a way we need to have a coherence between mission, vision, and strategy. To describe it, it's important to have indicators are necessary to measure the different dimensions from the ownership or the initial endowment to the result through the process aspect involved in carry out the activities. The add value is the explanation of the value that the company produces in the goods and activities carried out through the transformation of its initial components, raw material, initial capital, and so on. The contribution to right measures the degree of intensity of the company in the demand of right. Intensity we can define that means the calculation of the impact in terms of promotion of social environment rights that is, for example, for a growth of X points of territorial GDP that is generated, how many Xn, for example, rights are produced or promoted, or strengthened for the goods and service produced by the company action. In this way, the greater or lesser intensity of right that one or another company generates is calculated, taking into account no economic principle of the economy, its vision and democratic participation, for example, in order to study how to combine in terms of measurement the economic growth and the real being of the territory. It's important that the right are the bridge. The right are the bridge to understand if we are combine the economic growth with our well-being. If the company is doing something that arise our well-being in terms of all the community, not all of a group of people, economic group, or our company, but for all the community. This is very important because allows the company to understand if it is answering the question before, what kind of world we would like to have, and if we are doing it. So first of all, I say that this is not something that we can do theoretical, but it's a process. It's a process that means that the final result is the fruit of work steps that prevent the participation, another important word, the participation of members of the company, cooperative, and so on, and allows us to focus an important aspect of the company that goes from its functioning to its organization to the way to communicate in order to strengthen its permanent governance definition. It's an instrument, the social balance, when we do this with companies that create a new governance in the territory. It means that the social balance is not it's not just only accountability or a certification of our company, but it's something that put in contact, put in relation with all the territory, with all the actors. What we can define as stakeholders, no? That are different stakeholders. The process also ends by certifying an ethical profile of the organization that is legitimate on their own, communicates trustworthiness, ability to reserve and create work is important, demonstrate attention and sensitivity to the context in a sustainable way. We said this before in the presentation. In other words, it's a process that generates a reflection before all. It's always in the field of the social interpretation. That's not only absolute, but a reflection. We have to understand, because the theoretical framework that underlies this is that economic is not a mathematical system, but it's a social phenomena, and we have to reflect, to interpret and communicate the contents information about the task that will happen outside the balance of classical exercise. So if economic is a social phenomena, we have to understand that there are impact, that economic has an impact on the environmental and social that are out of the economic field. In particular, is used for, tell me if this is okay, please interrupt me when you consider. In particular, it is useful for be aware of each role, important, be aware of each role, of the role of each one, and of the general commitment that each one can generate in the frame of the general vision. It means that everyone, every part of the company, every single worker can generate a level of awareness of its role, of his role in the company, but in the community. How I propose my activities to change the territorially and not only to achieve a profit. For this reason, it's important that the last objective, the last objective of the social and environmental balance is to understand how I change how I change my community, my territory, my region, my system. You can say system, social environment system, ecosystem too. From the ontological perspective, illustrated in brief fundamentals, highlight the dimension of the area that are described through the action of the company for the local community in which the company operates. Provide information on the ownership of the company organization. Highlight the characteristics of the cultural system existing within the company organization by communicate its reference values. Highlight the social and territorial function problem too. It's important to localize, to place our action in a context to analyze the problem. Which are the challenges that the company has want to solve, to resolve, not to answer. Also, with respect to the environment condition and expectation of the external interlocutors. Illustrate the combined value produced and how it's distributed among the social actors who participate in the production process. Get to know the media that are used to value human resource, technological innovation, training activities, safety on the workplace, the prevention of environmental risk, and so on. At the same time, it contains what defines the identity of the organization that includes important, in my opinion, when we do this social balance with companies, it's important to understand from where we are coming, our reference to our history of life and history of the company. Why we are working, why we are creating this company. So it's important that it could contain a little brief reference to the history of the company, of the organization, or about our academic, also academic institution. A description of the social, political, and economic context where it's located. A definition of the ethical codes that give action and strategic choice. Declaration of the main mission. We say this. A description, excuse me. The description of the organization institutional dimension, information about the strategic program from the future plane until the most significant election to implement it. A presentation of indicators of management of efficiency, efficacy, and productivity, assets and social, economic, and environment ones. With respect to the last point, input, process, performance, output, and outcome indicators are generally divided. It means that we can describe different typology of indicators. Generally, there are 4 categories. It means that input, well, our investment, the process, how we use them to achieve a result, or performance, which is our performance to create a good, to create a service, to produce. The output and the outcome. The outcome is the change at long term. It means how we change our community in a long term. How we change in terms of right that create. We contribute to create the service to culture, to education, to to move, to have a home, to have a different right that we contribute to create or to promote, to strengthen. The first mission, the dimension of initiative, it's important to understand that our activities in a social balance is to understand our change in a long term. For example, not it's important how many people completed the course that we create, but how many people change his life, and how many people can change his life, and these people can change can change this the company where they work, can change, can empowerment the condition of work. With respect to human resource, they are generally illustrated their recruitment policy, the composition of the staff, the implement of the appropriate opinions, social initiative, staff training and development activities, the remuneration of an incentive system, internal communication, industrial relation, safety and health condition in the workplace, data with respect to absence and interruption in labor relation, etc., etc., etc. It's important to understand that human resource, a good social and environment balance has to illustrate all the policy of the organization, from the recruitment to eventually to the interruption, and how this is transparent, how this is how this happen, and it has to be transparent and communicate to all, have to know how how the policy all has to know the policies of human resource policy of the organization. With respect to our customer, so we are describing some aspect of the social balance, the relation inside and outside the organization. With respect to our customer, describe the quality system implemented, occupational health system and the result of customer satisfaction, communication policy. Or the management, another important aspect is the management of outsourcing and consultancy. With respect to local institution, it's highlighted the fiscal relation, the internal regulation, existing system are made and respecting the existing laws. It's important that a social balance highlight how the organization respect the law existing, and it's a certificate, so we can this aspect may be an ethical. This is maybe one of the aspects of the ethical behavior of the company. Contract stipulated with the public administration, financing and receiving the contribution, relationship with the trade association, and so on. Other important aspects of social balance are the explanation of the method and the source used to determine the distinctive phase and make the comments. It's important to understand, to explain the method, the way how we implement our strategy, activity, the explanation, and to communicate them. It's important to communicate them because it allows the company to create what we talk about. We were talking about before, the governance, territorial governance. It's important to create a participatory communication and construct the plan of improvement together with all the stakeholders, together with all the persons, the subjects that interact permanently with the organization. To do this, so a social and environmental balance has to explain the method that they use, the methodology they use. For example, internal meeting, group meeting, sector meeting with member and stakeholder in general. The choice of instrument depends on the organization, the level of activity, the level of activities, if it's national, local, or international, and so on. it depends on the activities they do. A good social balance explains how communication takes place inside. It's important to have a plan of communication. To have a plan of communication allows the organization to understand and to create the level of awareness for all. All understand what we are doing, where we are. At the same time, it explains how the devolution of the data is realized to its integral members and to the stakeholder, and how across the devolution a plan of improvement is realized in a short, medium, and wide area, wide terms. And in the generally the social a good social balance contain always a plan of improvement. The plan of improvement contains the objective that the organization company proposed to achieve in its analysis to strengthen the disabilities incurred or to provide new benefits at the territorial level. It presupposes an inversion plane, social and financial, possible change in the organizational and or institutional dimensions if necessary. In summary, it can be said that social and environmental balance is a tool, is an instrument that communicate outside a company, organization, association, and so on, not only the economic and patrimonial data or financial data, but a description that we can define a holistic description of the organization and how these organizations interact permanently with the actors, in order to create, to achieve the vision, the nucleus of values considered important in a subjective way. This is important because the social and the economic balance goes out from the positivism consideration that economic is only described by mathematical terms. In this way, social balance allows us to describe our economic activities in the process to understand what kind of society we want and how we are achieving it. In other terms, the objective that the local community arrives through the action of the company, the demand of right in long term. It is also an instrument of economic governance, as I said before, and democracy. It's important to create social and economic socialization and economic democratization. It allows the organization that implements to create a process of internal consent and participation with respect to its strength and weakness, to make appropriate decision in a participatory manner, in a participatory way, and allow a permanent improvement of the same internal social, environment, economic rights. It is important because from this dimension of awareness of consent, we can interact with institutions, with the other actors, and understand how to make better our context, our territory. And for this reason, I have still time. It's okay. And in this context, some quality principles for writing are: we have to always to highlight the methodology, contain the stakeholders, all our actors that interact with the institution, because it's important to understand the level, the level of the company where it works. Identify the responsibility it is important to understand and identify the responsibility of the organization. Highlights the management transparency. Social inclusion policy. Keep analyzing neutral and impartial and distinguish between data and comments. It's important to understand that the data are objective and the comments have to be impartial. We have not to defend some lobby, some interest, but to understand how to create a situation of a well-being society and environment for our all the context, all community. It's easy to understand, and these data can be comparable. We have to have indicators that can be comparable, and carried out periodically. Contain element of relevance and typical attributes of the organization in its territory. Okay. Synthesis of the stage. We can so understand that a social and environmental balance is always a process. It's not made only with data that we can write we can write in the piece in the computer and so on. But it's always a process that involves all the actors, from the CEO to the workers, to the community, to the family. If we are working with services, social services, cultural service, we have to involve our stakeholder, all the people that have an interest having a relation. I would like to define relation more than interest. Not only stakeholder, but all people that have a relation with the company. We talk about stage. We have to talk about stage. And this stage we can define in different steps. The first step is definition of the vision and the mission of the company, including what right we consider important and what rights we consider important for our well-being, and not only for a profit goal. And we need to interpret, or ways to interpret the noetic and the noematic dimension, as we said before. It means the relation, we say, between subject and materiality is always an idea, a concept. We have to understand what we are doing, to reduce economy in ideas in order to understand, to create that level of awareness, of conscience in the work. In this case, in this step, we have to work with it depends on the organization of the company, of the institution. We have to work with the members, assembly, boards, directors, CEO, workers, citizens, all the stakeholders in general. After of the vision, the following step is the definition of all strategic activities implemented with respect to the defined vision and mission. The activities have to have a coherence, a perfect coherence with what we would like to create. For example, a bank, the right to credit, the right to create credit for people, has to have an institution, but the values are the right to credit, the right to battle against the poverty and so on. For example, to include people in social difficulties, to create activities that include these people, give credit to people with the difficulties and so on. It means that all the activities has to be related to a vision, to the values. If otherwise we don't understand where we are going and where we are placed. This is important to understand where we are placed and going in the framework of the problem, of the needs, and with the values what we would like to afford our activities. Definition of the nodes of the consciousness awareness with respect to what is important and at the productive social environment level. What is important, the workforce has to be related to what is important and how we contribute with good service, because a company is always an instrument that produce culture, produce good, produce service, produce something. And what we produce that has to be related to what we consider important for society. Another step, definition of the stakeholder and the plan of communication. Definition of evaluation plan and indicators by income, process, provision, result, and outcome, as we said before, and create the add value that economic and patrimonial balance also in terms of community value. It means that our activities, what kind of add value it produces with our activities, our company. And for example, number of elderly people who receive social service, of the number of totality elderly people, and or children, or so on, for different good services that we create, we produce. It's important work, first of all, to define all the steps. It's important to work together from the beginning to the end, and the phases have to be launched, to be planned and launched in an institutional way, with an official moment, in order to involve all the members, worker or worker, with the company, and to understand that it's first of all a process of governance, a process that placed us in a different way to manage the company. It means that the management of the company, it's not only a responsibility of the manager, okay, but the people, all the people, are their responsibilities, their place, their level of consciousness and awareness that allows them to understand what they have to do. It's not they have to do, but at the same time, what they are achieving with their production. So the process needs to activate participation methods at different levels. For example, to define the vision, the mission, we have to involve the CEO, the board, but all the people with the creative, also with creative modalities, to define how the company is seen is important. For example, how the people they would like it to be in order to achieve a demand for right, so that everyone can bring their ideas. It's important that the social balance and environment balance allows the people to be creativity, to have their creativity, and they can carry out them in the company, because creativity is something essential for the life of the company and for the life of society. And something else, it's important to create instruments to understand, to analyze some questionnaire, interview, and other social instrument which allow us to highlight the opinions of the citizens and the supervisor regarding the serve, and to receive suggestions from the same community who could be useful to the company in order to implement what we called it before, the plan of improvement. The plan of improvement, it's important, it's very important to understand that the company is something always in an evolution activity, in a permanent evolutional activity. It's not something static, but dynamic. It's important to understand that a company is something dynamic. Some indicator that I developed times ago a formula, a general formula to understand or in order to include some elements that we talked about before. For example, a simple formula of a company may be P production equal is function of work, capital, and other factors, etc. Less the negative environment externalities in terms of right, more the number of people included in a demand of right. This demand of right is always a construction. It's not something that we can, it's not something, each territory has its demand of right. This demand of right has to be compared to the human rights too. For example, we are working in a system, economic system, human rights with the chair, to understand that there are rights that are universal, no? That are universal. And so we can understand that each company has to include a nucleus of common right, and at the same time a nucleus local, but at the same time a nucleus of universal human rights, in order to understand that the planet is one. We have, for example, a universal right is the environment, the safe environmental, the reduce the contamination, and so on. It allows a social. I would like to conclude, to finish, that one of the important things, in my opinion, that the social and environment balance allows how to understand how to build a unique economic system. Because I repeat that we have only one planet, only one universal humanity. We have to understand how to incorporate in economic system the nucleus of the universal nucleus of value that all the economy has to carry forward, excuse me. And this allows the social and environmental balance can be an instrument that describes this. In some years ago, I proposed in an investigation how to create a nucleus of human rights, common human rights, a nucleus of common human rights to be included in economic national system, for example, here where I work. And I think that this is a good challenge that unify, to understand that always there is a coherence of what we do, what we try to work on. A coherence that economy is first of all something that it's at home, oikos. This oikos we talked many times, no? Oikos, a home, a unique home, economic unique home. And so we need to understand which rights are for all, because it's a right, it's for all, and we can't exclude other people. And so we have to understand how to certify the well-being and not the profit we are achieving. I hope I explained in a brief lines this topic, and I'm at your disposal for question consideration. Thank you.